Okay, now we're going.
All right. So ask the first question.
Who has influenced you the most in your adventure racing career and why?
I would say that my brother has influenced me the most in my adventure racing career. He's the one that got me into adventure racing about 5 years ago. We'd always adventured together. We've been very close as twins. So we've had a lot of fun together out in the mountains and all that kind of stuff. And he's what got me into adventure racing. He led me through essentially my first real big race, Primal Quest of 2006, which convinced me that I was good at this sport and I can really do whatever I wanted to do. So, yeah, get back now.
Full body shots way far back.
That's the full body shot. Here we go.
Who do you think you have influenced the most and why?
I think that I have influenced, in terms of adventure racing, I think I've influenced my brother a fair bit. Mainly, again, before we got into adventure racing because of all the adventures we had together. Outside of that, I have been pretty involved in the last 5 years here in Grand Forks, starting an adventure racing group, and there's a number of people, including a couple kids, a 17-year-old kid, who have started doing our races and have basically discovered the sport and are probably going to continue doing it for the rest of their lives. So I'm kind of excited to be part of that. It's a small group. There wasn't anything here before, but the kid's name that I'm thinking about is Tom Fisher. You can look him up online if you want. He did something pretty remarkable last February. But so he's kind of an example of some of the influence I have up here in Grand Forks.
Being a multi-athlete / outdoor enthusiast, what has been the most challenging part of your journey? Did anyone like a mentor, parent, etc. help you through the transition?
Well, for me, the most challenging part of being a multi-sport athlete, adventurer, etc., has definitely been finding the balance between my passion for the outdoors and having all these hardcore adventures and going off and taking these risks in a sense, and then having a family. I now have 2 children. I have a 5-year-old and a 3-year-old boy, and I love sharing many adventures with them, but it does become a bit difficult with all the training that I'm trying to do and going away for these 10-day expedition races and all these adventures I do. So for me, that's been the greatest challenge. I haven't really had a mentor in that. I will mentor my brother as he gets into that phase, and he has to find the same balance because he doesn't have a family yet. But it's been a learning curve, but so far we're getting there.
What is the one life lesson you hope that Emma will gain from being an adventure racer?
The life lesson that I hope Emma would gain from being an adventure racer is confidence. I kind of have 3 things, and I'll touch on those later. I've read through the questions, so I know that there's going to be something about 3 elements of adventure racing. But for me, the real gift that adventure racing can give to somebody's life that isn't necessarily specific to the sport is confidence in themselves and their abilities, and this belief that they can go out, if they can complete this adventure race and get out of their comfort zone for hours at a time and push themselves when they feel like quitting and overcome that, then they're going to have a lot more confidence in whatever life throws at them. So.
Please say your contact information clearly on camera. Name, age, where you live, and a phone number where we can reach you.
My name is Andy Magness. I live in Grand Forks, North Dakota. My phone number is 701-330-0709. So that's the contact.
Tell us about yourself. 1, how did you get started?
I got started when I was teaching high school in High Tech High. This is for adventure racing. I was a big climber all through college, expeditions. Got some grants from the American Alpine Foundation to go do some first ascents. But as far as adventure racing goes, I was teaching high school in San Diego at a charter school. My brother came down. I got him a job, his first real job in a long time. He came down on top for a year. While he was there, he put together an adventure race team. He'd been doing some racing for about 3 or 4 years at that time. He put together a youth team. There were enough kids interested in it that I also led another team. So we had these 4 kids and my brother and I, and we led a 24-hour race as my first race up in California. That was my first real race. Then I moved to New Zealand. About a year later, he called me up and said, hey, I've lost a partner for the big daddy of all races, Primal Quest, which was a 10-day expedition race. And he pretty much said, it's a paid spot, but I need you to come and do it. So I flew back from New Zealand. I was out there training in the cold. It was winter in New Zealand. It was July in Utah. So it was awesome. I mean, it was a great formative experience for me in terms of adventure racing, and I got through that. And our team finished 24th place out of 90 teams, and only 28 teams finished that race. So all the other teams basically dropped out at some point. Super hard race. And that was really where I developed a love for that level of suffering and basically crossed over from just expedition style climbing to more endurance related sufferings.
What is your background and skill set for being an adventure racer and outdoor enthusiast?
So I think that I have one of the best skill sets for adventure racing, and that is that I did this for years with no transition areas, no sat phones where somebody's going to come pick me up if I got screwed or whatever, and where I was going out there with my brother and a couple other people, and we were pushing ourselves on these climbs back in the middle of nowhere, and there was no helicopter rescue available. If we didn't want to do it, at the end of the day, we just had to suck it up and do it. So we'd have 80-pound packs, and we'd have blisters all over our feet, and have a 10-mile hike over talus fields, and there was nobody crying for us, nobody telling us, oh, it's going to be okay, you're going to make it. We just had to pony up and get through it. And so that is the skill set that I think has made me a successful adventure racer. I haven't trained as hard as a lot of people, but I can get through anything. In other words, I get out there, I start suffering, and I just soldier on. And so that's really where I feel like my asset is in terms of racing.
What are the top 3 to 5 highlights of your career? Time to brag, brag, brag.
So in terms of adventure racing, Primal Quest has definitely been one. Again, I already talked about that, so I won't go into detail again. I took kind of a hiatus after that. The last big race I did was Abu Dhabi, which was an international stage race, and that was just this last December, and it was brutally difficult. It was very fast, really top caliber international teams. And I raced again with my brother and Team Yoga Slackers, and we pulled off a pretty decent finish. We got 14th out of 50. We beat the national championships from the USA, which was also over there on a paid entry. So that's another highlight. I'm only going to do 3 here because I could go on and on. The other highlight is an adventure highlight, and that is from a series of trips that I've been putting on and organizing the last few years, in addition to kind of the racing, which is a throwback to my roots of just pure adventure racing. Adventuring, and it involves this multi-sport kind of expedition. The biggest one that we've done at this point is we took a route up Mount Rainier, a mountaineering route up Mount Rainier, the longest route on the mountain, carrying pack rafts and skis. We did a ski descent of the Emmons Glacier without any prior backcountry skiing experience, and then we blew up our rafts and pack rafted 45 miles down the White River from the headwaters. And it had never been done before, something like this, and we were way out there, and it was awesome. I mean, we were pushing like an adventure race. Super long days, 8 hours in the tent at night with 16 hours of full on the go. So that was a good trip for us.
Could you move that way a little bit?
Sorry.
You're moving around.
Okay.
Who are some big name players you've run, swam, cycled with or against?
Against the biggest name athletes, I suppose, that I've competed directly against would be Team Thule, which is an international team comprised of Richard Usher and his crew from New Zealand. And these guys are the cream of the crop. They basically win everything they enter. They're coming back for the race I'm doing in August in Idaho, so we're looking forward to having another go at those guys. And that's probably the biggest competition in terms of adventure racing. I've also done a number of triathlons. I did an Ironman triathlon, my first and only Ironman, which is an off-road Ironman, the first one I think that's and only one that's ever been done in the States. And I can't think of the names off the top of my head, but there were some big-time triathletes there. So I've competed against a lot of great people, but Yoga Slackers, now they are a really good team. So when I'm competing with them, it's really the other people that are looking and saying, hey, we're competing against Yoga Slackers. So it's kind of cool to be at that level in terms of adventure racing.
What outdoor adventure would you say is your expertise or your weakest?
I would say that the strongest outdoor activity for me has to do with climbing or rugged terrain. For me, I excel when the conditions are the worst. When there's no trails and you're just bashing through dense thickets up a hillside or across talus, or you got river crossings, that's when I just thrive. As far as my weakest discipline, it would probably have to be mountain biking. I live in North Dakota. It's very flat, there's no hills, so and there's very little technical terrain. So for me, as a member of Yoga Slackers, I always struggle a little bit on the biking legs, where all these other guys have such great biking experience and training. So I've got to work on that a little bit.
Are you certified in wilderness training, personal training, or hold any certificates related to wilderness training or adventure racing?
I do not. There are no adventure racing certifications. As far as the other things go, I really, without sounding too cocky, I think that there are great people who are certified, but certification is pretty much meaningless in that sense, with the possible exception of some of the medical training that comes with wilderness EMT. But all that other stuff, I mean, I would be confident that I could go toe-to-toe with any certified guide or whatever, personal trainer. You take them out in the wilderness with me and you put a 10-hour course across mountains, and if they finish, they're going to finish behind me. So that's what I think about that.
What are 3 elements to being successful at adventure racing?
So this is where I've thought a lot, and I actually have trained a number of people and developed some principles surrounding endurance type training. And I think, 3 things. I think the first is confidence. You have to be confident in yourself in order to be a successful adventure racer. And you can get that confidence from racing, but in order to really succeed at a high level, you've got to know that whatever the race is going to throw at you, you're going to find a way to get through. The second is you have to have an intimate knowledge of suffering. In other words, you've got to know what it feels like to be broken down, to be at your last leg and still have 10 miles of walking through the rain with wet feet and blisters and a bum shoulder or whatever it's going to be. And once you develop that knowledge and you're kind of comfortable with that discomfort, then that goes a long way in terms of an adventure race. And the third thing is willpower. The training for adventure racing, although it doesn't require a lot of time, in my opinion, it does require a commitment, and you have to have the willpower to commit to that and basically say, I'm going to do it, I'm going to go through the paces, I'm going to do what I need to do to develop this knowledge of suffering and develop the fitness that's required, because basically you want to minimize the suffering. You're going to suffer anyway, no matter what, but if you can minimize that and you can know, hey, a marathon, I can go do that. I know what it's like. I can have that willpower to go and train for something. That's going to be a real important key in terms of training for something like this.
What are the most challenging elements or obstacles that Emma might face in participating in this race, especially since she is a little princess?
I think that Emma is going to face a host of challenges. I think that if the coach does not do their job, and in my opinion, the job is going to be from day one to get her out of her comfort zone as often as possible, so that you can shift that comfort zone as far towards what she's going to be experiencing as possible in the short amount of time. Otherwise, that's going to be a huge challenge. She's got to develop those 3 things that I mentioned. She's got to develop confidence in herself, or else there's no way she's going to get through it. She's got to develop that knowledge of suffering, and she's got to develop that willpower to carry on when she doesn't feel like continuing. So if she can get through those hurdles and she can develop those 3 characteristics, I think she'll be fine, but that's going to be a real challenge for her.
Do you currently coach anyone?
I do coach a number of people on limited scales. Like I mentioned, I coached a 17-year-old high school junior through the hardest race up in this part of the country. It's a 135-mile mountain bike race on snowmobile trails in the middle of winter. It's called the Arrowhead 135. So I coached Tom through that. He's now the youngest person to complete that. I've also trained my brother and Daniel and Chelsea from Team Yoga Slackers, doing some high intensity work to get them ready for some of these higher level races they've done, and a number of other people, just with some of the principles that I developed in terms of limited training volume and maximizing the efficiency of that for endurance events.
What would you consider your coaching style to be? Are you a drill sergeant or a big brother or sister?
And okay, so I know that I can only choose one of those. So if I had to pick one of those two things, a drill sergeant or big brother, big sister, to talk about in terms of my coaching style, for this opportunity of coaching Emma for an adventure race, I would definitely have to say drill sergeant. I think that Emma probably has learned to be fairly manipulative, and she has had a lot of success in being manipulative based upon the description of thinking she's confident and having everybody pick up after her. Maybe she's convinced that she actually is these things, but she's really manipulating other people in her life to create this or enable her to have this particular type of lifestyle. So I don't think you can, with this time frame, get somebody to where they need to be by just putting your arm around them and saying, hey, it's okay, Emma, we're just going to work together and we're going to get there. I think you're going to have to lay down the law. And so that's pretty much where at least I will begin letting her know that this is the way things are going to be.
What are the top 2 ground rules you would put in place in order for Emma to accomplish her goal in 5 short weeks?
Wow, the top 2 ground rules that I would put in place. I would put in place, there's 2 things, and they're kind of flip sides of the coin. I think that it's going to be important for her to develop the confidence and not to give up. And so one of the ground rules would be some sort of a daily affirmation, either with me or on her own, that she has committed to this, that she can do it, and that she believes in herself. Because I think that that's going to be one of the things that she's lacking as she starts to get into this and she realizes how tough this is. It's going to be easy for her to say, oh, I'm not cut out for this. I just better walk away. The other ground rule will do with communication. It has to be an honesty and an honest willingness to attempt the tasks and the training that's set out. If it's an honest failure, that's fine. We know where we're at and we can build on that. If it's just, I feel lazy today and I'm going to go with my friends to a movie instead of running my 5 miles or whatever it is, then that's not going to cut it. So that obviously is going to have to be a real conversation that we have in order to make sure that she's on the same page there.
What are some of the what are some out-of-the-box training techniques that you might do with Emma to help her be successful in her first adventure race?
So Jason has probably mentioned a lot of things that he's already thinking about. He has a lot of principles or things that he brings in from yoga and acro yoga. And I share some of those ideas. Some of the things that I thought of in addition to the breathing and the meditation exercises would be making it relevant to her. And this is something I learned when I was a teacher at this project school, is that relevance is huge. So for example, if we want Emma to do a scavenger hunt, like I think is mentioned in one of the scenarios, then we take her BlackBerry or her Droid or whatever it is, and that is at one of these checkpoints. If she does not find that checkpoint, then she doesn't get it back for the night or however long it is. We're not going to take her personal property, but basically we need to make this relevant to her, so that she realizes that there is this commitment on her part, and that what we need from her is the buy-in. And so that's something that I've learned, and I don't know exactly how it would work, but that's one idea. I also have a lot of ideas in terms of we need to get her suffering, so out of her comfort zone. So there's going to be some things that we're going to have to do that's going to get her cold, get her wet, get her really uncomfortable, so that she knows how to deal with that, whether it's waking up at 2 in the morning and going for a run in a rainstorm for 5 miles, so that she's shivering and she's cold and she knows. It's got to be safe. We don't want to make her sick, but at the same time, we got to make her know, hey, if I'm pushed, I can get through something like this. Because you never know in an adventure race, 6 hours, if it's pouring down rain, they're not going to cancel the race, so we got to get her ready for that. Tell me when I get.
All right, you're on.
Okay, so now I'm going to answer the questions, the scenarios that you set out. So I'll be talking directly to Emma here. And in this first scenario, Emma has broken one of my rules. I don't know exactly what that is, but let's say some training exercise that she was supposed to do on her own, and she didn't do it for whatever reason. And we will have had a conversation before where I will have laid out that the penalty for not doing that is the removal of one of her toenails. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not going to do that. So this is how I would probably come and react to Emma. So Emma, you were supposed to go out and you were supposed to run 3 miles, and you didn't do it. And I'm a little concerned simply because I don't understand why I'm here if you're trying to get so that you can do this adventure race. I'm giving you advice and and trying to train you so you can do that, and here you are, and you decide, fuck, I'm not going to do this, you know. So I'm in a little bit of a bind here because I simply feel like maybe I don't need to be here, and maybe you think you can do it by yourself, and if that's fine, then you just let me know, and I'll walk away. But if you want me here helping you do this, remember, you came to MTV, they came to me to help you out and get through this. If you want me here, then you need to follow my lead. When I tell you what to do, there's a good reason for it. If you don't want to do it, come and talk to me. Say, hey, my calves are cramping. If there's a good reason, I'm reasonable. I'm going to work with you. We can think of some other training exercise that's going to get the same lesson to you, that's going to give you the physical training or whatever it was that I was hoping to impart. If you don't understand why you need to do that, then come and talk to me. This isn't some magic box. I'm not trying to have it be this thing where you just do exactly what I say and then you will become Adventure Race Woman, right? Because that doesn't work. But you need to follow these directions or come talk to me. Otherwise, I'm out of here. And then you're going to try to do it on your own. And, you know, I just don't think that's going to work. So let's work together. This is your first chance. This is like strike one. And you don't get strike two. Strike one is it. So you've had it. Let's get rid of that. And now let's start on the right foot. No more screwing up, all right? All right. Okay, we're going to the next question. So that was first question. I don't always say fuck, so if I wouldn't have to say that, you know, she's 16, so maybe that would be good, but, you know, sometimes that helps in making the point. Second question was revolving around a scavenger hunt and Emma not wanting to complete it because it's cold and dark and she's tired and stuff. Okay. So in that case, in this scenario, she'd be sitting down, and I'd probably be sitting down beside her, but I won't pretend like I'm putting my arm around somebody sitting on the park bench or whatever. I'll just say what I'd say. So, so Emma, let's just take a little break. So I know that that it's tough, and you're finding out that it's tough here, and you're cold, and I get that. So let's just sit down and let's warm up. Maybe here we'll take out a space blanket. We'll get you wrapped up in the space blanket. And let's not think about this as all at once. One of the hardest things about this stuff is that you got this monumental task, right? You know, you got 4 hours left in this race that we're going to be doing here, that we're training for. And I know it's tough. You look at that whole thing, all is this monster, uncompletable task, and you can't wrap your mind around it. So what we need to do, and this is going to really be what we're going to do in the actual race, is we're going to wrap our mind around it in small chunks. Okay, so right now we've got about 500 yards through the woods to that next checkpoint. Okay, so that's our goal. So that's it. So we're 5 minutes, 10 minutes away, even if the bushwhacking's bad, even if you get lost. So let's take a bearing, let's look at the compass. You can tell me where you are on the map. We'll just sit down here. Are you hungry? Are you thirsty? We can get you something to drink. And we're not going to quit, because it's not all or nothing. You got to take this stuff in small steps. It's just like life. So here we are, right? Let's take a couple more minutes. Then we're going to get up and we're going to get to that checkpoint. And once we get to that checkpoint, right, we're 3 checkpoints in, we got 3 more. Right? We're over halfway done once we get there. We're not going to think about that until we get there. So for right now, let's just focus on that. One step at a time. We can go as slow as you need to go. We're not quitting. So it's not quit or die. There's all these other levels, and we're going to explore those levels tonight, I think, because I think you're going to be tired and you're going to be worked. So that's what we're going for. We're going to figure out how you can continue and what you need in order to continue. But that continuing is possible, because that's what you need to know.